Twists, turns, dead ends. Haven't we been here before? For visitors to the Fall Festival at Winterbrook Farms in Frederick County, there's nothing quite like losing yourself in the corn maze.
So we hold the title as Maryland's largest corn maze. Our largest corn maze on record was 9.1 miles of trails. This year, our maze is 5.2 miles of trails total. Just because we give you a map doesn't mean it's actually easy to read. We have lots of people that get lost.
But if you ask farmer Taylor Huffman, that's all part of the fun.
For a lot of people, I think corn mazes are a tradition. If you're great at reading a map, you won't actually walk more than 2 miles, but it's still that sense of accomplishment, I think, that they have at the end.
Founded in the early 90s by Taylor's parents, Winterbrook Farms comprises 327 acres, planted mostly in corn, soybeans, and hay. But for 7 weeks each September through November, about 25 of those acres transform into a fall funland, complete with a hayride to the pumpkin patch.
We plant over 20 different varieties of pumpkins in our patch. So you'll find anything from small little gourds to white pumpkins, red pumpkins, and your traditional orange pumpkin.
A farm animal petting zoo, and a whole lot more.
This year we just added a pumpkin jumping pillow. It's been a big hit. We also have mini zip lines, mountain slides, apple cannons, and a Moo-Choo barrel train ride, just to name a few.
But it all started with the corn maze.
In the year 1999, my parents had the idea to do a corn maze. They were new. It was something that was not popular at the time. My mom sat on top of the skid loader as my dad drove through the field and plowed out a path.
That was 20 years ago. These days, the family's methods for maze making have evolved a little. It begins with how Taylor's husband, Brandon Huffman, plants the corn.
When we plant our corn maze, we actually cross-plant it. We'll take the planter one way across the field and plant the whole field that way, and then we'll go back through perpendicular to that. That way it's a lot thicker, and when they cut the trails in, there's solid walls of corn.
As opposed to the way corn is typically planted, in conventional rows with spaces between. Right now, it's August, about a month and a half before the Huffmans open up their corn maze to the public. Only, it's not a maze just yet.
Behind me is our corn maze that we are actually getting ready to cut it.
With help from Sean Stolworthy, founder of the Idaho-based company Maze Play. This time of year, Sean and his team travel the country, cutting mazes from coast to coast.
We do a little over 100 mazes, so we've got to keep things clicking along pretty good in order to get to everybody's maze.
Step one in creating a corn maze is choosing the perfect theme.
Over the winter time, we think about themes that we want to go with the corn maze.
This year's selection, drink milk. Next, Maze Play takes that theme and the dimensions of the field and comes up with a design. Because it's not just a maze, it's also a work of art.
So we started with this concept drawing. This was the design we originally came up with, so the green obviously is the corn.
But the design on paper doesn't always match up with reality.
Sometimes there's a bad area of the field, sometimes things get moved and we don't know it, and then so when we show up, the design isn't exactly correct for the field.
This morning, for example, Sean's team had to do a last-minute redesign to relocate the entrance of the maze.
And that's where the entrance should have been. Okay. So then we reworked the design. You'll have your little kids' maze up here, you'll have your pumpkin patch up there, and then you'll have your bigger mazes down below.
With that taken care of, they're ready to cut the maze. The exact technology is proprietary, but essentially, Sean overlays the maze design onto a map of the field and uses GPS in the tractor to track his progress as he drives and cuts his way through.
We have an image of the design that we're working off of, and we know where we are in the field, so we're trying to drive according to where we need to go to try to create that picture in the field.
But not all of Maze Play's designs are cut. Some are grown.
We start in May, actually creating corn mazes. For the first part of the season, we're actually planting the maize as the maize. So we'll just put the seeds down where they need to grow, and then it grows up as the maize. And then sometime in July or August, we're switching over, and then we will start cutting like you're seeing today.
Of course, whether cut or planted, priority number one is making sure maze-goers have a good time.
A picture's great, but we're trying to create an entertaining experience for those on the ground too. So we've got a lot of twists and turns, a lot of different decision points. We design a small maze for the little kids, and then we design some bigger ones.
Once all of the paths have been cut, Sean and co move on to the next maze.
The next stop, we will head to Tennessee.
And come fall, the Huffmans reveal the farm's latest masterpiece.
Our 2019 maze, it says drink milk. It features a little girl holding a glass of milk, and it's because I sit on the Maryland Agriculture Commission, and we're constantly reminded of the struggling dairy industry in our country. So I decided to do a drink milk theme just simply to bring attention to the small dairy farms that are struggling.
Meaning a visit to the farm isn't just fun, it's educational.
On a typical weekend, we usually have around 3,000 people, give or take. So teaching the public while they're at our farm is definitely a goal.
For Taylor and Brandon, giving visitors the chance to learn about farming and make lasting memories is rewarding in more ways than one.
We actually receive most of our income in one time of the year. So agritourism allows us to not only educate the public, have fun doing it, but to also create a different form of income.
What started 20 years ago with a simple homemade corn maze has grown into a new strategy for keeping the farm in the family, one centered on creating experiences.
We have future plans to have other festivals at the farm. For example, next spring we're planning on doing a strawberry festival. So we're just finding ways to bring the public on the farm in other times of the year.